Oprah Winfrey is mistaken for a waitress at a luxury restaurant. Her reaction surprises everyone. The bustling dining room of Le Jardin Étoilé, one of Manhattan's most exclusive fine dining restaurants, shimmered with opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables adorned with pristine white linens and gleaming silverware. Patrons, business tycoons, celebrities and socialites spoke in hushed tones as waitstaff glided silently between tables, their movements precise and unobtrusive. Oprah Winfrey sat at a corner table near the window, her presence understated despite her global fame. She had chosen this restaurant for its reputation and ambiance, hoping to enjoy a quiet evening away from the spotlight. Clad in a simple yet elegant black dress, she opted for minimal accessories, wanting to blend into the background rather than draw attention. As she perused the menu, a young man approached her table. Dressed in a crisp white shirt and black vest, he carried a notepad and pen, his expression polite but hurried. "Good evening," he said with a slight nod. "Can I get you started with some water or perhaps a cocktail?" Oprah glanced up, surprised by the question. While she was accustomed to being recognized in public, she appreciated moments when people didn't immediately place her face. Smiling warmly, she replied, "Oh, I think I'll just have sparkling water for now, thank you." The young man scribbled her order on his notepad before turning to leave, but before he could step away, another server appeared beside him, whispering urgently in his ear. "I'm so sorry," the second server interjected nervously, addressing Oprah directly. "It seems there's been a misunderstanding. This is your table, ma'am. We've reserved it for you tonight." Confusion flickered across Oprah's face as the first server froze, his cheeks flushing crimson. Realization dawned slowly. He had mistaken her for a customer waiting to be served, not the guest of honor, seated at one of the restaurant's premier tables. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. The young man stammered an apology, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean any disrespect, Miss Winfrey. I didn't recognize you." Oprah studied him carefully, noting the genuine remorse in his eyes. He couldn't have been older than 25, his youthful features framed by neatly trimmed hair, and a hint of sweat forming along his brow. "It's quite all right," she said gently, her tone calm and reassuring. "We all make mistakes. No harm done." But instead of letting the incident pass unnoticed, Oprah felt a spark of curiosity. There was something about the young man's demeanor, his humility, his eagerness to please, that intrigued her. "What's your name?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "Marcus," he replied hesitantly, clearly unsure whether to engage further. "Well, Marcus," Oprah continued, her smile widening, "thank you for taking such good care of me, even if it was accidental. Now tell me, how long have you worked here?" Marcus blinked, caught off guard by her interest. "About 6 months, ma'am. I'm still learning the ropes." Oprah nodded thoughtfully, her mind already racing with possibilities. Over the next hour, as she savored her meal, a delicate filet mignon paired with a glass of red wine, she found herself reflecting on the encounter. Mistaken identity wasn't uncommon for someone of her stature, but this interaction felt different. It wasn't just about the mix-up, it was about the humanity behind it. By the time dessert arrived, a decadent chocolate soufflé topped with gold leaf, Oprah had made up her mind. She flagged down Marcus, who approached cautiously, likely expecting further embarrassment. Instead, she greeted him with a warm smile. "Marcus," she began, "I'd like to ask you something. Do you enjoy working here?" He hesitated, clearly uncertain how to respond. "Yes, ma'am, it's challenging, but I'm grateful for the opportunity." "And what are your dreams?" she pressed. "If you could do anything in the world, what would it be?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably, glancing around as if seeking guidance. Finally, he admitted, "I want to open my own restaurant someday, a place where everyone feels welcome, no matter their background." Oprah's eyes lit up with admiration. "That's a beautiful dream," she said earnestly, "and I believe you can achieve it." Before Marcus could reply, she reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. Handing it to him, she added, "When you're ready, call this number. Let's talk about making that dream a reality." Marcus stared at the card, his hands trembling slightly. "Are you serious?" he whispered, his voice filled with disbelief. "Absolutely," Oprah replied, her gaze steady and sincere. "Kindness and hard work deserve recognition, and support. As Marcus walked away, clutching the card tightly, Oprah leaned back in her chair, feeling a familiar sense of purpose wash over her. This chance encounter wasn't just a fleeting moment, it was the beginning of something extraordinary. The next morning, Oprah sat in her Manhattan penthouse, sipping coffee as she reviewed notes from the previous evening. Her encounter with Marcus lingered in her mind, not just because of his humility, but because of the passion he had shown when talking about his dream. Intrigued, she decided to learn more about him. Through discreet inquiries with the restaurant's management, she discovered that Marcus was indeed relatively new to Le Jardin Étoilé. He worked long hours, often pulling double shifts to make ends meet, and juggled his responsibilities with online culinary courses he attended late at night after work. But what struck Oprah most was the reason behind his relentless drive. Marcus grew up in a low-income neighborhood in Brooklyn, raised by a single mother who worked tirelessly as a home health aide. Food had always been central to their lives, not just as sustenance, but as a way to bring people together during tough times. His mother would host community dinners in their cramped apartment, cooking hearty meals on a shoestring budget to ensure everyone left feeling full and cared for. "She taught me that food is love," Marcus had once told a co-worker during a rare moment of vulnerability, "and I want to share that love with the world." Oprah felt a deep connection to his story. Like Marcus, she too had grown up in humble circumstances, relying on her grandmother's wisdom and resilience to navigate life's challenges. It was this shared foundation of hardship and hope that fueled her desire to help him succeed. Determined to understand Marcus's journey firsthand, Oprah arranged a private meeting with him later that week. She invited him to her studio, a space that, to many, symbolized dreams realized and lives transformed. When Marcus arrived, he looked nervous, clutching the business card she had given him like a lifeline. "I wasn't sure if you'd really call," he admitted sheepishly as they shook hands. "Of course I called," Oprah replied with a warm smile. "You intrigued me, Marcus. Your dream is powerful, and I believe it deserves support." Over the next hour, she listened intently as Marcus opened up about his life. He spoke candidly about the sacrifices his mother had made, the financial struggles they faced, and the constant fear of failure that weighed heavily on his shoulders. "But every time I feel like giving up," he confessed, "I remember why I started. My mom always said, if you can feed someone, you can heal someone. That's what keeps me going." Oprah nodded, her heart swelling with admiration. "You have grit, Marcus," she said firmly, "and grit is the foundation of greatness. But let's talk about how we can turn your dream into reality." With that, she unveiled her plan, a mentorship program designed specifically for aspiring chefs from underserved communities. The initiative would provide participants with access to top-tier culinary training, seed funding for their ventures, and ongoing guidance from industry leaders, including herself. "And you'll be our first participant," Oprah announced, her voice filled with conviction. Marcus froze, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she was offering. I don't know what to say," he stammered, tears welling in his eyes. "Say yes," Oprah urged gently. "This isn't charity, Marcus. It's an investment in you, in your vision, and in the countless lives you'll touch through your work." After a moment of silence, Marcus nodded, his expression resolute. "Yes," he whispered. "Thank you." Over the following weeks, Oprah threw herself into the project, leveraging her network to build a robust support system for Marcus. Renowned chefs agreed to mentor him, investors pledged funding for his future restaurant, and media outlets clamored to cover the story. But the journey wasn't without its challenges. As Marcus began attending advanced culinary workshops, he quickly realized how much he still had to learn. Techniques that seemed simple on paper proved difficult to master in practice, and self-doubt crept in as he compared himself to classmates with years of formal training. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, he called Oprah, his voice heavy with frustration. "I don't know if I'm cut out for this," he admitted. "Everyone else is so far ahead of me." Oprah listened patiently, her tone unwaveringly supportive. "Marcus, success isn't about being the best right away. It's about perseverance. Every expert was once a beginner. Trust the process. and trust yourself." Her words resonated deeply, reigniting his determination. Slowly but surely, Marcus began to improve. His hard work paid off during a high-stakes cooking competition hosted by one of his mentors, where he earned second place despite fierce competition. "See," Oprah said proudly when he shared the news, "you're already proving what's possible." Meanwhile, Oprah continued expanding the mentorship program, inspired by Marcus's progress. What had started as a personal gesture evolved into a nationwide initiative aimed at empowering aspiring chefs from marginalized backgrounds. "This isn't just about food," she explained during an interview promoting the program. "It's about creating opportunities for people to rewrite their stories, and in doing so, transform their communities." By the time Marcus completed his training, he was ready to take the next step, opening his own restaurant. But Oprah insisted on making it unforgettable. The day Marcus stood in front of his very own restaurant for the first time was one he would never forget. Located in the heart of Brooklyn, just blocks away from the neighborhood where he grew up, the space was everything he had dreamed of, and more. Oprah had personally overseen every detail of its creation, from the warm, inviting interior adorned with murals celebrating community and culture, to the state-of-the-art kitchen equipped with top-tier appliances. No expense had been spared. A neon sign above the entrance read, "Marcus's Table," in bold, glowing letters, a nod to both his name and his vision of creating a place where everyone felt welcome. But there was one element of the grand opening that neither Marcus nor anyone else knew about, except Oprah. As guests arrived for the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Marcus greeted them nervously, his palms sweaty as he shook hands with local dignitaries, journalists, and members of the community who had supported him along the way. Among the attendees were his mother, who beamed with pride, and several of his former mentors, who offered words of encouragement. "You've got this," Oprah whispered as she joined him near the podium set up outside the restaurant. "Just speak from your heart." Taking a deep breath, Marcus stepped forward to address the crowd. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice steady despite the nervous energy coursing through him. "This restaurant isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who has ever believed in me, especially my mom, whose love and sacrifices made this possible." He paused, glancing at her tearful face before continuing. "And to Ms. Winfrey," he added, turning toward Oprah, "without whom none of this would have been possible. You didn't just give me a chance. You reminded me that dreams are worth fighting for." The crowd erupted into applause, but Oprah wasn't finished yet. "Before we cut the ribbon," she announced, stepping up beside Marcus, "there's something I want to share with all of you." With that, she gestured toward a large screen set up nearby. A video began playing, a montage of Marcus's journey, from his early days working at Le Jardin Étoilé to the countless hours he'd spent honing his craft. Clips of him experimenting with recipes, consulting with mentors, and visiting underserved communities flashed across the screen, accompanied by testimonials from those whose lives he had already touched. But the real surprise came at the end of the video. "As inspiring as Marcus's story is," Oprah continued, addressing the crowd once again, "it's only the beginning. Today, I'm proud to announce the launch of Marcus's Foundation for Culinary Dreams, a non-profit organization dedicated to providing resources, scholarships, and mentorship to aspiring chefs from underserved communities across the country." Gasps rippled through the audience as they processed the announcement. "This foundation will ensure that stories like Marcus's aren't exceptions, they're expectations," Oprah explained, her voice filled with passion. "Because talent shouldn't be limited by circumstance, and kindness should always be rewarded." Tears streamed down Marcus's face as he turned to hug Oprah tightly. "I can't believe you did this," he murmured, his voice trembling with gratitude. "I didn't do it alone," she replied softly. "You inspired me, Marcus. Now it's your turn to inspire others." The ceremony concluded with the official ribbon cutting, followed by a celebratory meal inside the restaurant. Guests marveled at the menu, crafted entirely by Marcus, which featured dishes inspired by his childhood and infused with flavors that told stories of resilience and hope. One dish in particular stood out, a hearty stew called Mum's Love, a tribute to the community dinners his mother used to host. "It's not just food," Marcus explained to diners as he personally delivered plates to their tables. "It's a reminder that we're stronger together." By the end of the evening, the restaurant buzzed with excitement, and Marcus felt a profound sense of fulfillment, as if the weight of years of struggle had finally lifted. But just as he thought the surprises were over, Oprah approached him with one final gift. "Come with me," she said, leading him to a quiet corner of the dining room. There, on a small table, sat a framed photograph of Marcus and his mother standing in front of their tiny apartment building decades earlier. Beneath it was an inscription, "From humble beginnings come extraordinary futures." "This is for you," Oprah said, smiling as Marcus stared at the photo in awe. "It's perfect," he whispered, tears streaming down his face once again. As the night drew to a close, Marcus reflected on how far he'd come and how much farther he intended to go. With Oprah's support, he had transformed not just his own life, but also the lives of countless others. And as he locked up the restaurant later that evening, gazing out at the bustling streets of Brooklyn, he knew this was only the beginning. In the months following the grand opening of Marcus's table, the restaurant became more than just a culinary destination. It became a beacon of hope for the community. Lines stretched around the block as patrons eagerly awaited their turn to experience Marcus's heartfelt creations. Each dish told a story, blending flavors that celebrated resilience, culture, and connection. But beyond the food, it was the atmosphere that truly set Marcus's table apart. The walls were adorned with artwork created by local artists, many of whom had grown up in the same neighborhood as Marcus. Community events, cooking classes for kids, free meals for families in need, and workshops on entrepreneurship became regular fixtures, transforming the space into a hub of inspiration and opportunity. For Marcus, the journey wasn't without its challenges. Long hours and mounting responsibilities tested his resolve, but he leaned on the lessons Oprah had instilled in him: perseverance, humility, and gratitude. "You're doing exactly what you were meant to do," Oprah reminded him during one of their frequent check-ins, "and you're showing others that they can do it too." Her words carried weight, not just because of who she was, but because of the tangible impact Marcus was already making. Through the foundation, scholarships had been awarded to dozens of aspiring chefs, enabling them to pursue training and mentorship they otherwise couldn't afford. Stories poured in from across the country about young people inspired by Marcus's journey, determined to follow in his footsteps. One such story arrived unexpectedly one afternoon. A letter from a teenage girl named Jasmine, whose family frequented Marcus's table whenever they could scrape together enough money for a meal. "Dear Marcus," the letter began, "I've always loved cooking, but I never thought someone like me could actually become a chef. Seeing you succeed and seeing how much joy your food brings has changed my mind. Thank you for showing me that dreams are possible even when life feels impossible." Tears welled in Marcus's eyes as he read the note, feeling the weight of responsibility and purpose settle over him. This was why he worked so hard, not just to build a successful business, but to create pathways for others to achieve their dreams. To celebrate the foundation's first year, Oprah organized a gala at a prestigious venue in Manhattan. The event brought together donors, mentors, scholarship recipients, and members of the media, all united by a shared commitment to uplifting underserved communities through food. As Marcus took the stage to deliver his keynote speech, the room fell silent, every eye fixed on him. "When I was growing up," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "I never imagined I'd be standing here tonight. My mom taught me that food is love, but Ms. Winfrey taught me that love is action. It's about lifting others as you climb, ensuring no one gets left behind." He paused, scanning the sea of faces illuminated by soft lighting. "This foundation isn't mine. It belongs to everyone who believes in the power of kindness and determination. Together, we're proving that talent knows no boundaries and that dreams deserve support, no matter where they come from." The crowd erupted into applause, tears streaming down many faces, including Oprah's. After the gala, she pulled Marcus aside for a quiet moment. "You've exceeded every expectation," she said, her voice thick with pride. "But remember, this is just the start. Your legacy will inspire generations to come." Marcus nodded, overwhelmed by gratitude. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," he replied earnestly. "Yes, you could have," Oprah countered firmly, "because you have heart. And heart is unstoppable." As the evening drew to a close, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since that fateful night at Le Jardin Étoilé. What had begun as a simple mix-up, a mistaken identity, had blossomed into something extraordinary, a movement rooted in kindness, empowerment, and community. Over the years, Marcus's table continued to thrive, expanding to multiple locations across the country. Each new restaurant stayed true to its original mission, offering not just exceptional food, but also opportunities for growth and connection. Scholarship recipients went on to open their own establishments, creating a ripple effect of positive change that spanned cities and transformed lives. And through it all, Marcus remained grounded, guided by the values instilled in him by his mother and Oprah. One day, while hosting a cooking class for children at his flagship location, Marcus spotted a familiar face in the crowd: Jasmine, the teenage girl who had written him the heartfelt letter years earlier. Now grown, she stood confidently behind a stove, teaching younger participants how to prepare a dish inspired by her own heritage. "Jasmine?" Marcus asked, approaching her with a wide smile. She turned, her eyes lighting up with recognition. "Marcus!" she exclaimed, hugging him tightly. "Thank you for everything. Because of you, I'm living my dream." Tears pricked at the corners of Marcus's eyes as he hugged her back. "No, Jasmine," he said softly. "Thank you for reminding me why this matters." As he watched her guide the children through the recipe, laughter and chatter filling the air, Marcus felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. This was what it was all about. Not fame or fortune, but the ability to make a difference. And as Oprah often reminded him, the greatest gift wasn't the success itself, it was the chance to pass it forward.